way the Ringer, W-R-I-N-G-E-R, the way that was done is these reports were put together, and those interviewed for those reports, the subjects, were former POWs who were held in Soviet camps. So they wanted, the ones conducting the interview wanted to know about targets in the area, but in the course of discussion with the respondents, what they came away with was all sorts of information about others in the camps who were Americans, who claimed to be Americans, Americans from the Korean War and elsewhere. So there you have something, another source to look into further. Who's taken anything out of the Ringer reports and attempted to bounce it off other possible sources of information to come up with this substantiation? I could tell you that DPMO is not, or DPAA is not, certainly not in recent memory. So it's something that needs to be done. The program and this sort of work is not self-perpetuated. It needs to be done with by serious people who are committed to trying to put things together. You're very right, John, that when people go to the archives at College Park, it's not with the idea of a sustained effort for a range of things to look at. I was there myself and sat and read through material. DPMO does not launch its staff to work on a research project on a regular, ongoing basis, which I think is a major failing, because the classified materials there that you all, and now I, would not have access to, but they do have access to it, and that's being ignored as well. So,
Norm?
yes.
This is a report from the Ringer reports that I found earlier this year. This is, as far as I can tell, the 5th report that matches this, and it's all about a guy who came out of the Soviet Union, and he said, on a morning in August '51, I was supposed to bring drinking water to trains that were coming through my area in Siberia. The guards came and said, you are not allowed to give those prisoners in that train water. The guards then said, get away. Those are the American prisoners from Korea. And this describes exactly when and where it happened, and the Pentagon has never followed up on this or brought anything up, just another one buried.
It's insulting. It's insulting for the people responsible for doing the job of running down leads and coming up with information that might be in some way dispositive, that may help you resolve unresolved questions, to walk away from their responsibility. It's a breach of faith with you. It's a failure to carry out their responsibilities, and I don't see a place for it. I mean, I would rather work with a handful of people who are dedicated to the issue than have a crowd of people who are doing it only because it brings them a salary or because the front office tells them don't push too hard here or there. Lots to be done. I don't buy, as I mentioned, the fact that the political climate is such that it cannot happen. It can happen, but you and all the other family members need to let the government know that you're not going to let up until the effort is taken on seriously. That's what I say. I started with this in 1992 when I was still a 6'7" blonde. And here we continue on. I really would like to see some positive, demonstrable results come out of it. But candidly, unless someone takes the bull by the proverbial horns and tries to do something from outside, it ain't gonna happen. Thank you.
I'd like to add that for those of us who have been pursuing the truth about our lost heroes now for how many years have you been doing it?
23 years.
Charlotte?
Since 19, my math isn't good, but it's 1958.
50 years. There's only one Pentagon POW MIA official who's retired and then come back every year to help us and volunteered his time. It's that man right there. All the rest gone off golfing. So Norm, thank you. So that concludes this panel. Nicolette and Janella will introduce the next one, and for the three of you, just a housekeeping matter. Andy Lee, can you raise your hand? If you can see Mr. Lee, he wants to take a little video of you guys out in the hallway when you have a chance. So after this one, and when's the next one? Is it starting right now? Okay, we'll get out of the way.
As soon as we're done.
You taking any questions?
Excuse me.
You have a question?
Oh, questions, yes.
I know you weren't trying to address this in a political sense, but given the problems we're having, or the problems we say we're having with the Russians, I've been contemplating the fact that John McCain being one of the major stumbling blocks to the resolution of the POW issue, and the fact that some of the POWs have indicated that, especially Ted Guy, that McCain might have been taken to Russia. It's my sentiment that the Russians, especially Putin and Vladimir Shimonov, might have the information that McCain was in Russia and gave up information. And if they have that and they throw it our way, then we burn McCain and we can then resolve the POW issue based on his dishonesty. I'd like to know what you think about that.
Norm, why don't you take that one? I think you're especially good friends with Senator McCain, although Mike Benj, I know you're a big fan of Senator McCain. I believe you may hang out with him in the private clubs around here.
Well, according to the game, I wasn't me, if you know
On that point, I don't know, you can go through this. I frankly did not hear before that McCain was allegedly taken into the Soviet Union. I do remember that one of the people, Soviet at the time in Hanoi when he was a POW, Soviet, passed away, and before he died, he had nothing but negative comments about McCain, how he behaved, and the like. Shimonov, Shimonov was a guy who is a very senior figure in the Russian military. He was the Russian chair of the commission. And by the way, Shimonov did show a readiness to help us out. When I had him down with Fogelsong at Mississippi State, we spoke at length, and we needed some help accessing the archives, and right after he came back to Moscow, he did help. I don't know that Shimonov would give you anything like that. If it were true, if McCain were brought into the Soviet Union, I don't know that to be the case, it wouldn't have been handled by the military. It would have been handled by the intelligence service. And I don't think he's part of that.
Okay, well,
I have never heard that before, so, John, that's new about me. I've heard a lot of things about McCain and everything, but one of the things about the McCain classification of this on debriefing is that there were a number of POWs represented by the Russians. And that's one of the reasons why the McCain Act went into, because there's the DOD and everybody has been told those Russians didn't interview with the
We tried to explore that point, and what we did is we went through the debriefs of the various returnees, and we put together a briefing for the Russians to make the case that their people were present and participated in the interrogations of those POWs, and we never got an acknowledgement that occurred. What we were told was that they could be on hand. They might have been at the event behind the scenes. What we were also told in the very early days of the program was that there were multiple copies of the questions that were given to the Vietnamese to present to the POWs that came back to Moscow, and we asked the Russians for a copy of those to see if that might help us explain what happened, who was where, and if anyone was unaccounted for. They refused to provide that as well.
in Korea, they had Soviet intelligence officers who were of Mongolian background, and they wore Chinese uniforms when they transferred American POWs. They looked like Chinese. So if anyone's interested in Norm's idea about participating to get the information the government refuses to get, we're having another briefing here at about 5:15 to 5:30. You're all welcome. So get out later. Thank you so much. You can take any of these. Here's the ringer one, but the ones that relate to you